Okay, in the interest of fairness, I want to um, explain that when you leave a marriage of domestic violence, a partnership, whatever, um, you are often defamed. So the victim might be out there speaking the truth, but the perpetrator, because it is, they're perpetrating crime upon our bodies when they abuse us. And you would think that the police would be responsive, but some women are afraid to call the police, as was I, because I didn't want somebody losing their secret security clearance, and then I couldn't take care of myself. Um, but my thoughts now are I should have. I should have called the police. I should have done that. Um, it's a very difficult situation to prove unless you've got police reports and you've got reports that show pictures of the inevitable bruising that happens. Mind you, my ex husband's only hit me in areas that wouldn't be seen in public. And believe me, if you could see it, I was getting told to put on a sweater or a long sleeve shirt so that nobody would see it, and he would be embarrassed. But in the interest of transparency, I want to say that my ex husband, they call them flying monkeys, but really all they are is the people who know your abuser, who are more likely to trust your abuser, especially if they don't know you very well as an individual. You lose friends because there is something about an abuser. He can be so charming. Nobody would ever believe that these things are going on behind doors. So it's easy for them to lie and say they didn't do it and all this kind of stuff. Or better yet, to come back to you saying, "You convinced me I was abusive. You were wrong." But I'm like, no, the punches and the hits and the trauma made you abusive, not my interpretation of it, So, in the interest of transparency, I'm absolutely going to tell you that one of the things my ex husband did to discredit me after I left him, we had, when we lived in England, it was management would come out, American management would come out, and I would entertain, at the house. A business dinner kind of thing. My husband played the victim unbelievably, played the victim. So, what turned into things was I was supposedly a severe narcissist who terrified him and abused him for many years and stole from him. Yeah, I definitely had a spending problem back then. I love my planners. I'm sorry. And I always wanted a wedding ring, and he never bought me one. He always told me that his thing was, "I always think about buying you a diamond ring, but then I remember you don't really deserve it." So I would buy, these rings and stuff. But because I wasn't working, the only time I could spend money is if I got his permission. He was always happy to buy me the things that he wanted to buy me, that he wanted me to have, the clothes, the shoes, whatever he wanted me to have. But if I asked for something specific, he'd be like, "No, no, you don't need that. It's junk. It looks ugly or whatever." And then he'd be like, "You should have this instead." And then I'd get it and I'd be like, "Oh, thank you so much." And then I'd be upset. And what would inevitably happen is it would turn into all these things I do for you, all these gifts I buy for you, and you treat me like this, how can you treat me this way when I do so much for you? So basically, my ex-husband was so able. He started off going to a batterer's intervention program, and then he quit because he decided it clearly wasn't for him. He was more intelligent. He wasn't a druggie like a lot of these other guys were. So he quit the program early. He got into it himself. It was not court ordered, but it was one of the things he did to try to trick me back into getting back with him again and giving him his family back. And he was able to convince his employer to give him a conference room so that he could hold a narcissist abuse support group. And he even got it out in the public such that I had a friend call me and say, "What's your ex-husband's name again?" And I said what his name was. And my friend said, "Did you realize that he's got an ad in the paper for a narcissist support group in Winter Garden?" At first I was so, it's so weird the control they have on you. They have a lot of control on you after the fact. Because you're in like a trauma bond with this person while you're in that relationship still. And so I just wanted to be transparent that I was accused of being a narcissist, and a lot of the examples that he used for his classes were about me. So my son, who was living with him at the time, would be angry with me because he'd be sitting with his father because Daddy became best friend. My son started being abusive to me in the household. He's 15 years old, taller than me, doing the same things, opening a kitchen drawer where the utility, the drawer where you have all your spatulas and spoons and ladles and stuff. He's opening a kitchen drawer and can't get it all the way open because the ladle's stuck or something. And all I hear is, "I can't believe I have to deal with this shiznit. I can't believe that you can't keep a straight house, blah, blah." And I was like, "Oh, hey, you can't stay here talking like that." And then I got all the information. I see what Dad's saying about you. I see what you've done, and he never hurt you that bad. And, so I've suffered with this, my youngest son as well as a result of this. But at first I was so angry. Like I felt like I had to somehow go out there and defend myself to the public, because guess who lost the friends? Me. I lost the friends because he got out there and did a great PR thing. But one thing that also happened is that he wouldn't allow me to practice my religion. I'm Christian, that's my thing. I am Christian. And if he saw me reading the Bible or my Book of Common Prayer, he would pick these things up and throw them, threaten to throw them in the trash or whatever. So I couldn't practice my religion. But when we first got married, I was an active churchgoer. I was actually going to go into seminary with the Episcopal Church because that was my thing at the time. And he'd been raised in the Church of Christ, which is a lot more fundamental. But still, I was willing to, try it out. And we did. He tried mine. I tried his. What I didn't know at that time is that, again, it was just another ploy, to show that, oh, I go to church too, as you do. What it eventually turned into was him saying that he didn't want to go to church. He knew the word. He did know the word. It was used against me a lot of the times. But after I left him, guess where he went? He went right back to church. And again, he was doing all of these things to convince me that it would be okay to come home, that he would never abuse me again. So because they go through this stage of trying to get you back. And if that doesn't work, the abuse starts to happen again. So he ended up going to another Church of Christ and getting a mentor. So, he calls me up to say, well, I've got a mentor because I'm obviously having trouble, being a good husband. So I trust this guy. So he shared what he you can't, if they go to therapy and they come back to you and say, the therapist says I'm fine, that's only because they didn't tell the truth, right? Your therapy is only as good as you are truthful. And I'm in a place where, like, I know God sees all the messed up stuff I've done. I have not been the best wife. I mean, I've been faithful, but I've also dealt with alcoholism. I've dealt with overeating, things that I tried to use. I figured if I was, drunk every night, by the time dinner was over, if he decided to beat me around or, yell at me over something stupid, I wouldn't care. I just wanted to be numb. I wouldn't care. So he went to this mentor and he made such a big deal out of it, right? And I was like, well, did you tell him everything? Because we seriously, one of the other ways that abusive men can try to control you is by involving you in deviant sexual situations, such as swinging or getting a boyfriend so he can sit there and watch you and your boyfriend, do the dirty. And so that was part of what he tried to do to me. And he had a total porn addiction. I mean, he seriously had a porn addiction. And I don't want to talk about how I know that right now, but it was terrible. It was awful. And the expectations on me in the bedroom were awful as a result of the things that he chose to watch. So yeah. I told the mentor everything. I'm like, even about the physical stuff, and he was like, well, no, we haven't quite got to that yet. And I was like, well, then that's the meat of this. If you can't be honest about that, then I'm not sure why you're dealing with this mentor. So he told the mentor to prove to me that he was being completely honest and transparent and open. So he told the mentor that, and, abusive people, they want to rebuild themselves after their ship has crashed. So he was in the process of trying to rebuild himself. He was going to this church to prove to me, because I was going back to church again, after many years of not being allowed, technically, by him to go to church. So it was a ploy. Going to church was a ploy. The things that he tried to do to show me that he was fixing his anger issues were a ploy. So at some point, he wanted to be able to, I guess, like the kids, they would go camping. The kids from church. My son was in the youth group at the church that my husband was going to, and he wanted to become more involved with the youth group, and the mentor said no, because we know what you did to your wife. So what the story turned into, and this is when he started hitting up, like at his Fortune 500 company, running a narcissist support group as if he was a victim of my brutality. So the mentor said no, and he basically moved to the other side of town and doesn't go to church anymore, because he exposed himself and he didn't get what he wants. And therefore, he had to turn things around on me. So, what the what the story became was I was the narcissist that terrified the family due to my financial irresponsibility. And I will tell you, I did. I bought things. Sometimes I sneaky bought things because I wasn't allowed to get the things I wanted. I had to get what he wanted. I loved gold. He loved silver and platinum, so he'd always buy me what he wanted, not me. So, okay, fine. But so that became the story that I had convinced my ex-husband that he was abusive when he really wasn't. And it was that process that gave him the justification to start running these narcissist support groups. And if I ever talk to somebody who's like, oh, yo, your ex-husband, oh, I'm going to a support group, I am going to let that person know, we better stop that support group because it's a load of bull donkey. For real, for real. But I wanted to be transparent and let you know that I wasn't the perfect wife. I mean, like I said, I'm faithful, I was overweight. I was alcoholic. But you don't deserve, no matter what they think of you, you don't deserve to have crimes perpetrated against your body. You don't deserve that. I didn't deserve that. And for this person to turn it around in the public eye as if I'm a little crazy. They love telling you everyone thinks you're crazy. They think you're crazy. Who's they? They they all say you're wrong. Okay, who's they? So I just wanted to say that there are always two sides to the coin. There are two sides to the coin. And I don't know if my ex is still rolling those classes or not, but while I was so angry at first, I had to remember that God sees everything. I've never tried to lie to God. I've never tried to hide something from God because, in my opinion, you can't hide anything from God. If you're opening your full heart to Him, you can't hide from God. But I can see that he doesn't believe and that he was backslidden many years ago, even though he grew up in the church and knew the Bible very well. Here was my silliness. When I got divorced from my first husband, again over abuse, I thought the only way I'm going to find a good man is a man who knows the Word. So I prayed for a man who knew the Word. That wasn't the right prayer. I didn't know it. I didn't know it until many years later when I started going to a Pentecostal church where I love it. I love it. It's Shabbat Church and it's in Apopka, and I love my bishop, and I love the people that have welcomed me and accepted me into that environment. But it wasn't until I started doing some, really understanding the Bible a bit more and having an amazing teacher in our bishop, Bishop Todd Hall. He's very popular and famous all over the world, apparently, which was really great. Yeah, because I've had people who I didn't even know who he was, when I first started the church. But as I was sharing with people, oh, this is my new church, they'd ask, who's your bishop? Because, maybe they'd be trying to get me to join their church for Bible study or what have you. And I'd say, you know what? I got myself covered under Dr. Todd Hall, Bishop Todd Hall. And I'd get the looks, Bishop Todd Hall? That's your pastor? I'd say, yeah. Oh, well, I'm going to leave you alone. Like they already knew that he was the real deal. So through Bishop, I learned that the right prayer was a man who submits to the Lord. Ah, big difference. You can read the word, but if you're not submitting and you're not trying to be better every day, you're not the right man for me, right? So back then I prayed for a man who knew the word. I got what I prayed for, and in a backslidden form. But now I know to pray for a husband that submits to the Lord. I have faith in God. I have faith in love still, even with all the trauma I've experienced in my marriages. I still believe that with the right discernment, I will be able to have a happy marriage someday. I do not intend to not be married. So that's my thing. And so now when I pray to God for a husband, I pray to God for a husband that submits to the Lord, who loves the Lord as much as I do, who will cover my house, cover our home in the right way. That's what I want. So I really just wanted to tie this up by saying I want to be transparent and say that, my husband's side of the story, my ex-husband's side of the story is definitely much different than mine. So I'm going to be honest about that, and I'm going to continue to pray to the Lord, because my ex-husband and his behaviors and what he tells people, it's a matter of flesh. I'm supposed to be praying in the spirit and letting God handle that battle for me. And I didn't know how to do that at first. And so it hurt me very much. It broke my heart. I used to cry all the time about it, that he was getting away with making this narcissist support group and using material on me that wasn't necessarily true, in order to promote his class. So, and use it for instruction. I had to tell him, stop doing that where my son can see it, because he's coming to my house and treating me poorly now as a result of what he sees you preparing for your bullcrap class. Sorry, please, Lord. I pray a lot for my thoughts on my ex-husband. But anyway, that's what I just wanted to share that with you and be transparent. And if you ever run across a narcissistic support group, check with me. I'll let you know if it's my ex-husband. All right. Bye now.